Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast. I am Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst at friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Joining me on this episode is Frank Ammirante. Frank, how you doing?
How's it going? Doing good. It's an honor to be on your show. Before I started getting into fantasy baseball writing, I really enjoyed listening to you. So it's an honor, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show as well, my friend. Before we get started, remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then talk about what you do.
All right. So you can find me on Twitter at FWFB. And I write for a few websites. I write for Rotoballer. You can find my fantasy baseball work there. I also dabble in fantasy football. And I write for The Game Day, which I'll write a bit of baseball, or a bit of sports betting, and a bit of fantasy football. And I'm always up for debate on Twitter. I love discussing baseball and football. So anytime you want to engage, hit me up. Any lineup questions, any debates, I really enjoy. That's my favorite part about being in the industry. So that's where you can find me, and I'll look forward to see you on Twitter there.
Yeah, definitely go follow Frank over on Twitter. Go read his stuff over on Rotoballer. And I'm glad you were able to spend a little bit of your Monday evening. It is Monday, not Friday, with me. And we're going to just jump in. At some point, I think Matt Thompson is going to join us. And it may be soon, as I see him attempting to try to log in right now. But we're going to roll without him until he's actually here. So let's start off with TJ Antone. He hits the IL. This is a bummer. Are you holding on to your Antone shares right now?
Well, I am. I looked up at an MLB.com report, and it said they expect a quick return. Like Reds manager David Bell was saying, he's really confident he's going to be back when first eligible off the IL. Excuse me. So I would be holding on to him. The real bummer right now with him is we all really wanted to see him in the rotation. And with how poor that Reds bullpen is, I just don't really see it happening in the near future unless the Reds sell off, Luis Castillo, maybe Sonny Gray, maybe Wade Miley at the deadline if they start falling out of contention. So I think we can rule that out. But I would hold on to him just because he's really helping your ratios out and with good strikeout rates.
Yeah, I don't know if they can get much for Luis Castillo considering the season he's having right now. Wade Miley seems like the logical answer of someone who might get traded at the deadline if the Reds do decide to sell. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Sorry for being a little bit late, but you know how it goes around here.
No worries. What are your thoughts on TJ Antone? Are you holding on to him right now?
I kind of think you have to, man. It's a concerning thing, but like, I don't know about you. I don't really have spare starting pitchers in any of my leagues that I can just cut him for. So even if he comes back, I mean, a lot of their young pitchers for the Reds are actually pitching well right now. Santillan and Gutierrez, I don't expect it to last, but I mean, even if Antone comes back in a limited kind of the role that he had last year where he's going 2-3 inning bursts and getting the strikeouts and helping your ratios that way, I think that's a good use of a starting pitcher spot right now even. I mean, it's kind of it's tough in these streets right now to find pitchers, and it's
oh yeah.
I don't know about you, but can you trust any rookie pitchers coming up right now with how bad they've been? I mean, I kind of think you have to hold unless you get. I mean, because look, there's a couple other pitchers went down today. Bieber and Glasnow went down today with injuries. So
and Matt Boyd, who we'll talk about in a little bit. So.
Right. So like, I mean, if you have to cut him, by all means, cut him because of injuries. But like, I wouldn't expect. It's obviously very, very, very league dependent. But like, wait for more news. You know what I mean? As far as it goes, if you can hold, because it'll be worth it if you can.
Yeah, one of the catch-22s of the 2021 season has been not only are we dealing with like so many more injuries than we typically deal with, right? Because of that, there's less available guys on the waiver wire, right? Because people have been ILing these injured guys, and now there's less to choose from. It's one of the reasons NFBC doesn't have an IL spots for those of you playing that format. That's also frustrating too, because even in those leagues, you have to make real decisions. I've had real decisions where it's like, I've got to decide whether I can hold on to guys like Zach Gallen when I already have a TJ Antone on my roster. And I would try to hold on to Antone. It does sound like he's going to be back fairly soon. And I think the upside, I don't know that they're going to make him a starter this year. Yeah, I don't know that you want him to be a starter this year, because I don't know how long into games they'll let him go. But considering the state of that bullpen, he could easily turn into their version of Hader for the year, right?
You can take it for the ninth inning eventually, if that's what
you and that's what I mean. Like a guy who can who go 2 or 3 innings, but it'll be at the end of the game and get you some saves.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that.
All right.
That's true.
Luis Severino, he leaves his rehab start the other day. This now marks the third of the big 3 TJ returnee guys having a setback, that being Chris Sale, Noah Syndergaard, and now Luis Severino. I think this begs a question on, one, are you keeping Luis Severino if you've been stashing him, especially considering the amount of injuries we had? But also, should we even be drafting these guys returning from TJ even when they have huge upside like these big 3, Matt?
That's, again, a very league-dependent question, but, like, Severino, to be clear, was a lower body injury, not an arm injury. Syndergaard's, I believe, was an arm.
Mm-hmm.
Sale, I believe, was an arm issue.
It was a back and then an arm issue.
Yes, back of it, yes. But Severino's was a confirmed lower body issue. Okay. I do the minor league daily write-up for Prospects Live. If you guys haven't seen it, shameless plug there. But we cover any notable – I do low A specifically. So doing low A, I'm getting a lot of rehab appearances. And Luis Severino's rehab appearance that he made the other day, was in a park that has StatCast available data. He was sitting 98, touching 99. I mean, the velocity appeared back. That being said, so there's nothing to worry about there. The spin numbers look comparable to what they were when he was healthy. That being said, it's a lower body injury, so he's really the only way you can't have to do that is rest, right? There's really no other. You can't throw through it. You can't. It's going to push him back. I mean, they were expecting him back in 2 or 3 weeks from now. Now I would say that's going to pause the rehab assignment, and when he comes back, it'll be another fresh 30 days. In 30 days, you're looking at 4 or 5 starts probably, the way they were going. You're not going to see him probably till middle of August is my assumption. If you've been able to hold him, I don't know how with all these injuries we've been having, but if he's available in the league, if you desperately need the spot, I mean, I can't really think of many more high upside arms that are going to be available. There's not too many prospects I wouldn't think are coming up later in the season in the pitching department that will help you that much. And if you do see those guys coming, do you really want to roll the dice with how bad rookie pitchers in general have been this year? I mean, Shane Baz is a guy I'd be watching. He just got promoted to AAA, but again, it's the Rays. I don't know how they're going to use him. Severino has a real chance to be a 6-7 inning horse when he returns in the limited stretch. So it's really hard because if you have the space, I would hold him. But if you have the space, DM me because I don't see how there's anybody in the world that has the room for him right now with the way injuries are going. We've talked about pitchers, but then you got Corey Seager and Eloy and guys like that you got to. Eloy's coming back too if he's available. I might want to scoop him now. But crazy, man. Injuries are. Jack Flaherty's not coming back till the end of the probably August now is what it looks like for him. So it's a mess out here.
Yeah. Frank, what about you? Are you trying to hold on to Severino? And then, like, overarching idea, like, should we be drafting these TJ returnee guys?
Well, like Matt was saying, it really depends on the league. Like, for example, if it's in an NFBC format like TGFBI where you have limited bench spots, there's no IL, I wouldn't go into the draft taking a guy like that because, like we see with Sale and Syndergaard and Severino, there always is a chance that they have a setback. There's always risk they come later. They return later than expected. So in those formats, I tend to hold off. I don't target those pitchers. But if it's a if it's a format where I have like, some of my home leagues where we have like 3 IL spots, I could stash him for a while. In that case, I would be drafting him. But to your point about right now, would I hold him? It's if I have an IL spot, if I'm lucky enough. Maybe if I'm wasting one bench spot on him, if I don't have an IL spot, I'll hold on. But if it's more than that, it's hard. It's real hard to really hang on to him with how widespread injuries have been this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I think we should really start thinking about not drafting a lot of these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately, and I think people who drafted these guys coming into the season were using a flawed process. We kind of knew there were going to be a lot more injuries this year anyways, right? We had never had a season where we went from 60 games to 162 games. The workload for pitchers, obviously. And so we kind of knew that this was going to be an issue. And so people who were stashing these guys, I think it was just a poor decision. Now, in terms of what you do now, if you have him on your roster or if you're thinking about picking him up, I think the only real places I would do it is if I'm in a head-to-head format with a playoff system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
if I feel really confident I'm making the playoffs, right? Like I can hold a roster spot or a guy that I don't really need till August. Because that's when the playoffs are going to be, right? The playoffs are typically, last week or two of August and then into September. That's the kind of spot like, okay, I'm going to take the shot on the upside there if I feel like, hey, I've got a good enough lead on the non-playoff contender teams in this league that's the spot. But in Roto, it's just so hard, man. I mean, if you're one of the few teams out there that doesn't have an injury, like Matt said, show me your roster because that's amazing. But I think it's because I've got 29 teams, and I can't tell you out of a single one of my 29 teams if I'm untouched by injuries. It's just impossible.
You made a really good point that I think people need to realize too. Like, if you're fighting to make a playoff spot in those head-to-head leagues, you can't mess around with stashing guys.
No.
The innings. But if you're in a situation to where you're kind of okay, you see the playoffs, perfect situation to stash. But you're very right. If you're fighting for the playoff spot, there's really nobody worth stashing. It could be Wander Franco. Nobody's worth stashing.
No, you got to do whatever you can to make the playoffs and then hope that the team you put together can propel you through them. But if you're, I used to, one of my old home leagues that no longer exists was like a head-to-head categories league. And every year I was crushing that league. And I knew by, this point in the year, like, oh, I'm going to be in the playoffs. Now's the time to start looking at some of those stashes that I can go, okay, I don't need the extra playoff spot or the roster spot, and I can stash a guy like Severino. So it's really, like I said, it's league team format dependent, but hopefully that answers people's questions on that situation. Max Muncy hits the IL. This is a bummer. He's been really, really good. He's got an OBP over 400, showing power this year. I think obviously we're stashing him for, there's no reason to drop him in any format. But Frank, what are your thoughts on Muncy so far this year?
Yeah, like you said, he's been great, especially in OBP leagues. I mean, he's always awesome and bumped in those formats, but he's been even better this year. Like he's cut his strikeout rate from 24.2% down to 20.5%. He's homering a lot. His expected WOBA is 431, which is higher than his actual WOBA. So he's making good contact. And yeah, like you said, you can't really cut him loose, especially because reports are saying that Dave Roberts is saying that he's going to be able to return likely right when his IL stint is done. So that's good. And then the good thing with Muncy is now as a replacement, you could pick up teammate Zach McKinstry. He's rostered in only 8% of Yahoo leagues. He's eligible second base and outfield. And maybe he'll get more playing time with this injury. So at least you have sort of a direct replacement there if you're in a deeper format.
What about you, Matt? What are your thoughts on Muncy?
Yeah, not a lot to add, man. You're not dropping them, obviously. Daily leagues give you a lot of creativity with this Dodgers lineup on what you want to do. But that's always a headache. But I wish – I got to say this quietly because I don't want to get attacked by the mob, but the NFBC should think about having a daily format. I would play, but too many people defend everything they do, so I don't want to get too crazy. It is the greatest platform, so we all know that. But you get a lefty on the mound, maybe you play someone like a Pujols, or I mean, Gavin Lux should be rostered everywhere. He should be playing every day. McKinstry, like you already mentioned, one of the more underrated prospects because all he does is hit. Doesn't really have a position. Kind of fits in perfectly with what they're doing. Sheldon Noisy is in the same situation. It's wild how much depth they have, but I mean, you can never have enough, right? Everyone kind of mocked the Pujols edition, but he's been
great. Yeah.
It's been great for him, and they've been finding plenty of time to play him. So it's the rich get richer, and the Dodgers are always a step ahead of everybody, man. It seems. But
yeah, as a Giants fan, this is super fucking frustrating.
One thing to caution, I guess, a little bit on Muncy. If you're in a dynasty league, you are going to lose third base eligibility for next year, if that matters to you. It's first and second, and with this injury and where the Dodgers have depth, he hasn't even appeared at third base, so probably cross it off the list. But it shouldn't really matter too much, but just throwing that little note out there. You will not be eligible at third base next year.
Yeah, I don't think that's as big of an issue. I mean, third base is a pretty thick position.
First and second is pretty solid.
Yeah, I think I'd much rather play him at second and then slide him over to first when I do need a corner. Yeah, I'm not going to add anything else. You guys covered it. Mitch Haniger, he's out. He fouled the ball off his knee.
His knee, not his other place.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, in some ways, the x-rays were negative, so in some ways he's lucky, but it's a deep bone bruise. He may still hit the IL. I think they said he's about 50-50 on whether or not they're going to place him on the IL. Matt, is he like the unluckiest player in baseball? It just feels that way.
I think he's kind of lucky that it only hit him in the knee this time, right? And not the other places where it's typically hit him before. Haniger, man, he's a wild profile. He was a non-prospect that kind of completely rebuilt his swing, turned himself into was a prospect, kind of got hurt, rebuilt his swing, came into this stud, in the making. Kept getting hurt. That's been the story. I don't think Seattle. I mean, the thing is, he's Seattle's best trade chip. I just don't know if they're going to cash it in or not, especially with this injury now. But Seattle has a lot of young outfielders, and I kind of think they wanted to keep Haniger around. But I think now this kind of solidifies that. But yeah, there's a lot of people that are probably going to cut Haniger in leagues now with this injury, and if he's available and you can stash him, he's another guy to grab. Because I don't think he's going to be out too long. But again, you got to make the playoffs, so you got to do what you got to do. Haniger he's the best player on a bad team, which is okay for fantasy.
Frank, what are your thoughts on Haniger?
Well, like you said, you really got a feel for him. I mean, he was having a real nice bounce back season, was a real nice late round sleeper for fantasy players. He had 16 home runs already. He looked back to 2018 form, so it's really a shame. But it is good that it doesn't appear to be too lengthy of an injury. And the other side to this is that outfielder in Seattle there, Jake Fraley, has been playing real well. He's got 4 homers and 4 steals in only, 69 plate appearances. And I looked back before coming on the show, and in AAA this year, he was slashing 364, 500, 682 with 2 homers and 2 steals in 28 plate appearances. So this is a guy, he was hitting well in AAA. Maybe they you catch some lightning in a bottle there, picking him up to help replace Haniger, or even if not, and just you want to pick up another, cheap outfielder. But hopefully Haniger's back soon because he was really having a nice bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the talent has really been a question mark. It's just his ability to stay on the field. And I know there were a few people in the industry that were really high on Haniger coming into the year. I was not one of them, just because he gets hurt all the time. And, that's such a hard guy to roster. I do hope that, I think it's great when he's healthy because I love watching him hit. And I do hope he's able to get healthy and that the Mariners do think about trying to trade him for a piece at the deadline. But dude just has not been able to stay healthy. I mean, it's what derailed his minor league prospect status, as Matt kind of referenced. Hopefully he gets back on the field. Speaking of getting off of the field, Tyler Glasnow and Matt Boyd both leave the game tonight, their games tonight with arm injuries. Tyler Glasnow was shaking his arm and then left the game with elbow inflammation in his pitching arm. Same thing with Matt Boyd. He leaves with arm fatigue or arm soreness. General arm soreness is what the Tigers are calling it right now. I don't know that there's anything actionable here, but just letting everybody know. Make sure you, especially in your daily moves leagues, get them out of your roster for later in the week because they're not getting their second starts.
Don't go grabbing Matt Manning. He's not ready. He's not coming up. He's been pretty brutal. The one name I will throw out for Tampa is it might be Luis Patino time.
Yep. I don't understand why they sent him down after coming off the IL. But I'm assuming it's a service time thing.
That and they like to play. I think they get too cute sometimes. They find these guys off the, not Patino in the sense, but they find these other guys out of the. It's every front office does this. They find, it's like the Max Muncy theory, except Muncy's really good. Like the Dodgers found Muncy, so they're going to play Muncy over these other guys because they created it. You know what I mean? But it's worked out for the Dodgers. But I think the Rays do that a lot with pitching, and it's hard to argue with the results. But I don't think they use their most talented guys on the roster all the time. I think they use the most convenient guys on the roster. I think that's kind of what. But Patino's been. He's been really, really good in AAA. He's got nothing left to be down there. He's got some fastball shape concerns, but he's got a little bit of natural cut to it. Doesn't get the ride that traditionally you look for, but. If there's anybody that knows the value of different looks, it's the Rays, and they can definitely figure it out.
All right. Let's talk about some more pitchers because our topic for today is, are we buying these pitchers? And we're going to start off with a guy I think who's actually pitching tonight, and Sammy Long for my San Francisco Giants. Frank, what are your thoughts on Sammy Long? Or are we buying him? Because he was like one of the top pickups this week in NFBC leagues, main event leagues, CGFBI leagues.
I think I got to say I'm buying Sammy Long. I mean, he looked dominant in that long relief appearance, 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, 1 walk, 7 Ks. In that start, his fastball had a 42% CSW, and his curveball was also over 30% at 34. And if you look back at his minor league numbers this year, he was dominating. In AAA, 7 2/3 of innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 15 Ks. In AA, 15 innings, he had 22 Ks. And you look at the Giants, they've been really establishing themselves as like a top organization with pitching. I mean, look at Kevin Gossman. Alex Wood was bouncing back before he's hit a rough patch recently. Anthony DeSclafani, and to a lesser extent, Aaron Sanchez. They've found some success with them. So I think they really know what they're doing there. And then I looked and their GM, the Giants GM, was saying they've been talking about having long starts. So I think they're going to continue giving him a longer leash and working him up. So I'm definitely buying on him right now. I like what I see.
And correction, he is not pitching tonight. I believe he's actually pitching tomorrow night. So, but Matt, what are your thoughts on Sammy Long?
Yeah, I think the Giants need a fifth starter tomorrow, right? Tuesday?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's tomorrow.
Tuesday's going to be the day he's going to go. He's kind of taken over the Scott Kazmir role, right? Or a bunch of arms have had, but like, Justin, what's the status on Logan Webb?
I believe he is starting some work today. So
that's kind of what ties into this. I mean, obviously, I think with the way pitching is, though, I think you kind of have to take a shot on Long. You see the minor league numbers are great, but I mean they've been very controlled. He's not really facing. They're a little bit inflated because the way he's been limited. He's pretty much going through the order one time only, and that's been in the minor leagues. He's got 20. What am I looking at? 17 innings and 4 appearances. So that's, I mean, like in AA and AAA was 7 innings and 2 appearances. So he's not really turning the lineups over. So that's if that's a concern. If you're looking for more bulk out of him, you're not going to get that. But again, it's fun to see these reclamation projects, and I think you kind of have to roll the dice on Long. The Giants brought over a lot of the pitching lab information that the Dodgers have, obviously with Farhan Zaidi's connection there. They are on the forefront of pitching the Dodgers and the Giants are unbelievable as far as developing arms, especially recently for the Giants, and it's starting to show through in the lower levels. I do the minor league report every day, and there's a new Giants pitcher that goes crazy every night. So it's a fun exercise, but it shows you how deep the pitching philosophy runs with them, and they're mimicking the Dodgers, and that's not a terrible thing to do as far as pitching development. But I mean, he's better than Aaron Sanchez. Hopefully that they're done with that experience. I would assume in the rotation, maybe Sanchez can fill the bulk role, and I'd give Sammy Long a look because it's a free investment. It's a free dice roll for the Giants. So, I mean, I hate to sound morbid because he's a human being, but what do they have to lose by giving him a shot? And if it doesn't work out, you know what I mean? It's not a prospect that you're worried about his long-term future, or you're monitoring his pitch counts and stuff like that. It's not that case. He's going to be 26 years old soon. So I'm interested in Sammy Long, and I've gone way too long on this topic already, but in the sense that, yes, because he's going to pitch. He's probably going to go 4 or 5 innings, and if you can deal with that, then perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hard part is the length, right? Is how many innings is he actually going to go in these starts? I think, when you're targeting him against, like, for instance, tomorrow he's pitching against Arizona. So, like, that's a really good lineup to maybe he actually goes 5.
I mean, any home start's good for him.
Yeah, and any home start, they're home tomorrow as well. That being said, like, he's not going to go 5 in a lot of his starts, which means you're not going to qualify for a win, which means you're definitely not going to qualify for a quality start if that's, the barometer of whatever your league plays with. I don't think the upside is huge. I think it's a great story. I mean, this guy was a minor league free agent this year, and the Giants signed him off the street. I hope he's successful, but when Logan Webb comes back, and the Giants are contenders right now. Would it surprise me if they go get a starter at the deadline? It absolutely would not surprise me. So, like, I don't think this is a long-term play, but right now everybody is looking for pitching because there's nothing available. And so if you can swoop this guy up off the waiver wire for some short-term help while your team gets healthy, I think that's it's not a bad spot.
They've been treating that bullpen like a fantasy roster too, just rotating guys in and out, dropping guys up and down. It's good. Kind of how the Dodgers did it.
I mean, as much crap as Kapler gets and has gotten, as a manager
this year,
he's been pretty darn good. I've been very happy.
Field stuff, but his on the field stuff was good.
Yeah. Patrick Sandoval has been pitching very well as of late. He's gone at least 5 innings in each of his last 4 starts, and he's coming off 2 straight quality start outings. Matt, what are your thoughts on Sandoval?
I've always kind of liked Sandoval, even when he's with the Houston organization. He's kind of a back-end guy, and he comes to LA or Anaheim, whatever you want to call it. And I was, hopefully that's good for him. I was kind of hoping by now he would have solidified a rotation spot because, you don't think of the Angels as being, pitching heavy all the time. You know what I mean? They always have injuries and always have, but you're still looking at a guy like this talented that's still trying to find a niche. But he works that fastball up. He's got a good breaking ball that he plays off of with the slider. Slider is probably his best pitch, if I'm being honest. But command comes and goes. That's the story for him. I mean, he seems like he's been around for a while. He's only 24, so you do have a little bit of upside here. But I think if you I would take a shot because I think he's a guy that you can get a strikeout per inning on and, maybe 10 or, 12, 13% walk rate, which is usable, right? So, give me Patrick Sandoval. I've seen him work before, and I think he's going to be solid. And again, it's all the matchups, too. I don't know who they're facing coming up, but the Angels have they need some pitching in a long way, and they've seemed like they've needed pitching for a decade. Hopefully Sandoval can help step in there.
Yeah, I mean, Sandoval is coming off of a good start against Arizona. His next start is lining up against Detroit on Saturday, so that's a good spot to pitch him in. Frank, what are your thoughts on Sandoval?
Yeah, I'm buying Sandoval as well. Going back to what we were saying, it's a barren pitching landscape with all the injuries. We were saying how he's pitching well recently, and look back at that start against the Mariners where he struck out 10. He had 32 whiffs in that game and 17 on his changeup. That's pretty crazy. You got to pounce on that. I looked at his pitch mix, and it seems like he's throwing his changeup more. It said from Baseball Savant that he's throwing it 34% of the time, which is up from 22%. So anytime you see that kind of tangible change, it's good to see. It's encouraging. And also, I want to give a shout out to one of my another writer from Roto World, Kev Masaragian, at Roto Surgeon. He sent out a really informative tweet about how Max Stassi really helps the pitchers. And his tweet showed that he was ranked among the top catchers in yearly strike rate, and Kurt Suzuki was towards the bottom. So with Stassi back, you might see a lot, some improvement across the board with their pitching staff. And I really think we got to give Patrick Sandoval a chance here with how he's looked in the last few starts. At least ride the wave and ride the hot streak.
Yeah, I think he should be picked up in just about every format.
Probably already owned, to be honest. After his last few starts.
I know he was a big target for me this week in FAB. So like if he's still available in your league, I think go and swoop him. There is a ton of upside in the arm. I really like in the way the changeup has been working in the last few starts, and I think that's a big deal to give him another pitch to use to keep hitters off balance. The schedule has been very light, but that's what happens when you pitch in the NOS. As long as you're avoiding the Astros, the other teams in that division aren't really that scary, with Seattle and Texas and teams like that. So I really like Sandoval a lot, and I would be grabbing him. Vladimir Gutierrez, a guy that Matt already mentioned already on the podcast, he's been pitching very well, and he's actually pitching well again tonight. I think he's gone. Double check. He's gone 6 innings, or he went 6 innings, gave up 4 hits and 2 walks, only 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts. Frank, what are your thoughts on Vladimir Gutierrez? He's having a real hot start right now.
You know what? I'm going to actually sell on him. I prefer Sandoval, and I prefer the Giants pitcher there was just drawing a quick blank.
Sammy Long. Yep.
Yeah. Because I think they have more strikeout upside. Even like coming into tonight's start, Gutierrez and including tonight's, he had walked 2 or more hitters in each of his starts. He's pitched. You don't like the ballpark he pitches in Cincinnati, and I think the wheels will come off with him. He had 2 starts against Milwaukee back to back, and he's pitched well, but you know how that offense has struggled throughout the season at certain points. So I'm going to pass on him. And his next start, I believe, is home against the Padres. I don't really like him there. So I mean, if you're hurting for pitching, I'd give him a chance, but I prefer the other 2 that we've mentioned, and then others that we're going to mention.
What about you, Matt? Where are you at on Gutierrez?
The command scares me. He's had some homer issues in the past. In the minor leagues, it's tough to gauge it with the environment there. But he's always kind of been a guy that has missed less bats than you would think because of his stuff, and he's not going to be a real big strikeout guy. And I just don't think the upside is worth the potential blow-up risk, in my opinion. I know he's been pitching well, but I'm not saying go sell him because you're not going to get anything for him, but I'm not going crazy on my FAB trying to pick him up either, because the strikeouts and the whiffs just aren't there, and the tendency the blow-up probability is too high to take on that risk, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys. I mean, I liked what Gutierrez has done so far. I did stream him in a couple leagues this week, hoping just to pick up the nice 2-star and maybe sneak an extra win or 2. I'm hoping that he doesn't get crushed by San Diego at the end of the week, like Frank mentioned. The hard part is, one, like, he does not strike guys out, like you guys mentioned, like 8% swing and strike rate this year. He gives up a lot of contact in the zone, almost 90%. I think it's 88% actually in the zone this year with the contact he's given up. And that park is, especially in the summertime, as it starts to warm up in Cincinnati, that ball is going to fly out of Great America Ballpark, and that's going to end poorly for him.
Is a 93% strand rate in AAA good?
I believe that's a bit high.
Yeah, so I think that's going to come down. So his FIP in stuff in AAA. I know those are all flawed stats, but he's pushing like 4.5. So gives you an idea of what you're looking at.
I think you can ride it for a little bit, especially because that division is poachable from time to time. Especially with the other teams in that division. So that being said, they're going to be some bumpy roads, and they'll be hard to predict. I mean, he's going to be one of these guys that you go, oh, look, he's got Pittsburgh this week, and then Pittsburgh just lays the wood on him, and you're in trouble. So that's always the hard part with these guys, the kind of fringy skills, is you never know when the blow-up is going to come, and it often doesn't come when they're going up against the Dodgers. It comes up when they're going against a team you wouldn't expect. Yep. Speaking of the Cincinnati Reds and blow-ups that happen against teams you wouldn't necessarily expect, Wade Miley is pitching out of his mind this year. No hitter aside, dude has just been great. Matt, are you buying Wade Miley?
I mean, there's nobody selling him, number one, right now, but I still know. It's all that cutter, right? The cutter's kind of driving the profile, and you kind of wonder. I'm not saying I don't have any information, but you kind of wonder what the stuff with Major League Baseball coming down the pipeline with baseballs and stuff. Again, I don't have any information on this, but he's a veteran that's been around a long time and been on a lot of different organizations. So there's a very, very good chance he's picked up a trick or two somewhere along the line, right? But I still don't buy it. You watch him on a daily basis, you still don't understand how he's necessarily doing it, but he's just throwing strikes. I guess as simple as that. He's pretty much sticking to one pitch and just, and the defense behind him isn't even good. And I don't understand. Like it's
not good at all.
The Reds might have the worst defense in the majors. It's quite possible. Yeah.
I don't know if that's particularly close either, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're running Eugenio Suarez regularly out at shortstop, things are not going well.
Right. And it's crazy, man. And again, obviously if you have him, you're thrilled. And don't pat yourself on the back because you got lucky. But, I mean, that's just the reality. Sometimes you need good luck. So nobody drafted Wade Miley because they thought this was coming, that's for sure. And if they did, they're lying to you.
I drafted him last year. It did not work out well for me. Frank, are you buying in on Wade Miley?
I'm buying in on Miley. Now, not necessarily that I'd go out and trade for him. I'm just going to continue enjoying the ride here. This is like the classic boring veteran who doesn't really get a lot of strikeouts. He's just getting it done somehow. And I looked at his numbers, and he's got his walk rate is 6.7%, which is the lowest since 2016. He's got the best ground ball rate of his career at 56.8%. So maybe he's doing it just by inducing a ton of ground balls. And what's crazy is I look back at his game log, and if we take out that 8-run blow-up at Coors Field, where he probably didn't start him anyway, his ERA is 1.86 with a 0.95 whip and 46 strikeouts in 58.2 innings, which is pretty crazy. I mean, obviously you didn't expect this. This isn't who he is. He's overperforming. But he could be that ugly veteran innings eater at the back end of your rotation. I think he could keep it going. I mean, we've seen these pitchers throughout the years overperform their peripherals through a full season, and you just got to ride the wave. And maybe if the Reds fall out of contention, they'll trade Wade Miley to a better ballpark where he doesn't have to pitch in this bandbox. So I think you got to keep riding the wave here.
I'll be interested to see what the spin rates are on his next outing, because if you look at the rolling graph for his spin rates this year, every single one of his pitch has the lowest spin rate in his last start than he has all season.
Huh.
And we're seeing that with a lot of these guys, right?
Yeah, not to be fair, it's not just Wade Miley, right?
And of course not. It's going to be everybody. But, I think a guy like Wade Miley maybe hurt a little bit more than maybe some other guys because he just doesn't have the stuff at his age to contend without that. Yeah, so I'm not buying Wade Miley. I think he will be one of the Reds' biggest trade assets if they do decide to sell. I think that is a large possibility that they will. That being said, I'm not going to get hurt by this one. I'll have enjoyed the Red.
Major League Baseball just came out with, they announced kind of what their plan is now. Per Jeff Passan, any player caught, because catchers are the biggest culprit. You got to watch catchers too. Catchers are the best way to hide shit because they touch the ball every time and they're not under the watchful eye. Any player caught using grip enhancers will face a 10-day suspension, and these penalties will begin being enforced on June 21st.
On June 21st. So everybody's got one more start to get their shit in.
But see, here's the problem I have because grip enhancers is so vague.
Mm-hmm.
Because every pitcher in baseball has a grip enhancer somehow. Every pitcher in baseball that does this, that's a grip enhancer if you want to get technical. Licking your fingers, touching your hat. I mean, what are you going to tell guys that they can't wear sunscreen when it's playing day games when it's 90 degrees? You can't ban sunscreen. Rosin's on the mound, for God's sakes. There's a bag of rosin behind the mound. I don't like that they're giving the umpires free discretion on this. It should be you can use this. Just give them something they can use. Let them use it. And then if it's more than that, then you do something about it. But they're just being so vague that you might look at Joe West wrong and he might toss you and then you're facing 10 games.
And I mean, I don't think they should be able to toss people in game. Test the balls. Take the balls out. And I mean, unless there is a Pineda situation,
supposedly they've been doing that. Supposedly they've been keeping baseballs.
But there hasn't been any penalties for him yet.
Right.
It's pretty much your dad saying, listen, if you don't clean up your room, you're not getting ice cream tonight. And he's got the ice cream on the table already. That it doesn't matter whether you clean your room. Dad's having ice cream. You're having ice cream.
Right.
And so this idea now that it's okay, your room's not clean, no ice cream, but I get to determine what is clean and what's not. So your socks being on the floor, that doesn't count, right? But your toys being on the floor does count. It's an arbitrary process. I go and listen for those who are listening either live or listening podcast form. Go listen to the most recent, or actually it'll now be the Friday episode of Rates and Barrels. Eno Saris, Derek Van Riper, Brittany Garoli of The Athletic, all talking about this. I learned a lot from it, so I highly recommend it. But I think Matt's right. Everybody's doing this stuff. There needs to be just, this is okay, this is not. Because they're going to try. Everybody's going to try something.
They need to come out and tell them. And here's another question that I have a little background in playing. I don't want to assume everyone else does because I think some people have never played, but they enjoy fantasy. So I'll fill them in on a little bit like this. Why are hitters allowed to use pine tar? Or why can't they? Hitters are illegally allowed to use pine tar. Why can't pitchers use it? It should be a unified substance, right? Pitchers hit. So how are you going to determine if an NL pitcher has pine tar on his jersey because he bats? So he's a hitter too, right? What do you do then?
I think these are all fair questions. I mean, ultimately, and I'll let Frank chime in here in a second, but ultimately, this is our generation steroids, right? And not. Hold on a second, because this was against the rules, and Major League Baseball has known it's been going on.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And allowed it.
You're right in that aspect.
And now they're saying, oh no, you can't do this, because Trevor Bauer went out and got a huge contract while saying, I'm doing this.
Did you hear Pete Alonso's theory?
I don't buy that in a minute. I don't buy that at all.
I don't think Major League Baseball has enough ability to do that. I think everything that's happened has been a coincidence until this point.
I don't think baseball knows what the right hand or the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. I don't think that Rob Manfred is smart enough to pull off that kind of move. And
I mean, Rob Manfred is obviously this situation. I'm not saying it's Rob Manfred's problem, but he's the face of it, so he deals with it.
He made it his problem, though.
They've handled this terribly.
He could
come out and say, like we said, eliminate the gray area. You're allowed to use pine tar, rosin, and suntan lotion. Whatever you use beyond those three things is 10 days. Here you go.
Yeah. I think that's right. Frank, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with what both of you are saying. They need to really establish the boundaries and what's allowed and what's not. This gray area has got to go. And to relate it and take a fantasy spin on it, it's going to be even more challenging navigating that and it's going to affect this pitcher more. Oh, it might not affect this pitcher so much.
Well,
So just an added challenge there
Here-
for us.
you've been watching the College World Series?
Oh, I haven't seen.
They're using shit too, man.
Oh,
Like,
really?
why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
Because Major League Baseball teams are so in tune on what your spin rate is now, right?
You can buy it off of Amazon for $10.
Yeah, no,
$15. You know,
Jeff Ponce with Prospects Live, he's been on. We've been talking about Spider Tack for probably since December of the year of 2019. We've known about it, and we have. I'm not going to tell you the names of the pitchers. Maybe I'll tell you off air, but he's got text messages with pitchers that are telling him this is what they're using, and we have a chart of what spin rates are with sunscreen and rosin, with nothing, and with Spider Tack, and with other different substances from agencies that we've kind of friendly with at the website. They sent us information. It's a drastic difference, which you can kind of see played out. But like even if you're using sunscreen and rosin, you can expect your stuff to maybe gain 100 RPMs, 200 RPMs. Spider Tack is like 400 or 500. So that's a big difference. You're going to see, and it's weird because everybody's dropping like 200 or 300, right? That's kind of what we've seen, and that jives with everything that I've been told. Anyways, I'm getting secondhand information, so I'm not the guy, but it's crazy because go on if you want to laugh, go on Amazon, search Spider Tack on Amazon, and go look at there's reviews, right? Product reviews. It's more popular now, so you might have to search for it. But if you look, do you know what the original use of it is for? How it became more prominent?
Oh, I heard this somewhere.
Remember those World's Strongest Man competitions that used to be on?
Brittany Giroli said for the lifting of the Alice stones.
Yes, and there's basically what the Amazon review is. For people that are watching video, this will help. There's a guy like this. He's holding his hand just like this by his face, right? There's a cinder block stuck to his hand, and he's holding it like this. That's how strong that stuff is. There's a legit cinder block just hanging from his hand.
Wow.
It's on the review on Amazon. Go check it out if you don't believe me. It's there. You might have to find it now because, again, it's a more popular product than it was with all this stuff going on a couple months ago. But that's the review on the site. It's hilarious. But Major League pitchers will find anything. And then did you read the article on was it Yahoo that published it today about the old Angels clubby?
I saw the text messages. Yes,
he's a former. I'll let you go read it. A former major league pitcher showed him the mixture. Now all these players from all these teams are texting him and Venmoing him money, and they're sending it all around. And and there's enough transactions where people go from team to team to where you know who's got everything. So it's crazy, man. Not to derail our discussion, but.
Well, we'll get back on track, but this is I think unless you guys disagree with me here, we'll move on. Ultimately, it's really hard to figure out who is and who isn't. And really who
everybody is, and don't.
We assume most people are.
If you're a Red Sox fan, don't be a hardo because the Yankees Garrett Cole is doing it because you got guys on your team doing it too. So
absolutely, and so don't overreact in fantasy. Don't go trading Trevor Bauer or Garrett Cole. Because you think that all of a sudden, everybody's going to go down. There might be a few guys that don't, but most guys are going to go down a little bit. So don't think you're getting some over on someone because you're trying to trade these guys before these punishments come down. Let's move on and talk about Tucker Davidson, who's been pitching very, very well so far. Matt, what are your thoughts on Davidson wrestling? Do you think he can stick in this Braves rotation, and what's the kind of outlook?
I like him a lot. I think he can. He's a different prospect than he was previously because he's added a slider to the mix now. And all right, hold on. This computer went nuts. He's added a slider, and he's kind of transformed from a pitchability lefty. He's added a little velocity. He has it when he needs it. But that slider, he's almost 50-50 fastball slider now. I think when he came up in 2020, he kind of had a way different pitch mix. There's only been one start, but I think he could stick. I mean, they don't have many other options. To be honest, Kyle Wright is not a guy that they want to use. Bryce Wilson struggled. But hopefully, Tucker Davis could take that spot and run because he's lefties that throw hard are fun. So hopefully he can stick that up.
What are your thoughts on Davidson there, Frank?
Well, for me, maybe it's just the lingering effects of having all these young pitchers coming up and struggling that I don't trust him as much. He just so far hasn't had a high strikeout rate. And I know it's only been 2 starts, but he's had an 89.7% strand rate. I know you're saying he added that new pitch, which is great to hear. And he could definitely stick in the rotation and have some upside. It just personally for me, with what I've seen so far this year with the rookie pitchers, I'm less trusting of them. So for me, I prefer the others like Sandoval on this list. But I mean, he's definitely worth a look and see what happens. Roll the dice.
Yeah, I've watched all 3 of his starts so far this year for the Braves, and I've actually been very impressed with him. Even the game against Washington in which he walked 5, like those 5 walks were all spread out throughout the game. He didn't walk more than 1 guy in an inning. And 2 of those 5 walks were Juan Soto. You're not going to blame him for walking Juan Soto. And it was mostly about he didn't want to give a guy a pitch to hit. He was willing to put a guy on base because he had the bases empty out throughout the game, as opposed to give him a good pitch to hit when he got behind. So he's been really impressive. I think strikeouts are coming. He's got like a 13% swing and strike rate. He's getting swings and misses outside of the zone. His swing percentage is almost 32%. Like the defense behind him is pretty good in Atlanta, and being left-handed kind of helps soften the blow of that short porch in right field. So I actually like Davidson quite a bit, and I think he's a guy that I think out of this list so far, he's my favorite guy that we talked about. And I do like Patrick Sandoval a lot, but I think Davidson so far, from what I've seen from him watching these 3 starts, I think he's got some real upside and on a contender, a team that's going to be good rest of the way.
I agree. Those are the 1-2 for me as well.
Jackson Kowar is the opposite end of the spectrum, not on a contender. He has been absolutely atrocious in his first 2 starts. Has given up 8 earned runs in 2 innings over 2 starts. I think 96 pitches so far. He's just been crushed. Frank, are you interested in Kowar at all, or are these first 2 starts scaring you the hell away?
Scaring me the hell away. I mean, it looks like another Daniel Lynch situation for the Royals, where their young pitching prospect comes up and struggles. I mean, 5 walks in those 2 starts where he combined for 2 innings, like you said. It's not even clear that he remains with the team. Like it's really hard to see them keeping him up with how he looked in those 2 outings. So clear pass for me here.
Matt, is he a pass for you?
Yeah, and it hurts my heart to say it, but yeah, I was a fan of Kowar in the minors, but he's one of those guys where you kind of learn more about pitching, get pitch data and stuff. The fastball is not optimized, which basically means it's got horizontal movement to it, which eliminates. You want the rise. The rise makes it appear like it's staying up in the zone, right, attacking up, but he's got that horizontal movement which cuts through the air and kind of it's not optimized for missing bats. It's more optimized for making weak contact. That said, his command has been pretty terrible. So when you have a pitch that's when you have a pitch that's set up to get weak contact, if you can't locate it, you're gonna end up what you have here. It's been a pretty bad result. I was anticipating him to be good at his first outing, and then didn't turn out. And I'm off of him. I'm still back on the Daniel Lynch train, though. I like Lynch for what he is. There are some reports that Lynch might have been tipping his pitches. Who knows? Maybe that's the Kansas City Royals spin. Maybe it's not. Who knows? But it bums me to say it, but I think Kowar is a guy that I'm out on, and I think for dynasty leagues even I just don't know if the stuff could play because it's 2-pitch mix in the rotation. When 2-pitch mix can play if you have a plus pitch, or if you have a big 8. Like Lamet can get away with it because the slider is like a 7 or even an 8, right? Like the 2-pitch guys, like he's fastball changeup. Remember Michael Wacha and Chris Paddock, kind of that type of guy. And those guys have both been pretty volatile for their careers, right? The fastball slider, kind of work it off each other. They have the same issues. Wacha had a better fastball shape-wise. Chris Paddock's had pretty much those issues as well, and he's kind of been up and down. He's not a guy I'm trading for, not a guy that I'm anxiously waiting to start. But it's more so the command that's been poor than the pitch shape, but the command will improve. And I'm not writing him off as a major league pitcher by any means, but he's not a guy that I'm trying to acquire right now, unfortunately, because I do like Coar. I do like what the Royals are doing with their pitching, but I'll pass. And he might have that double plus changeup as advertised. According to Fangraphs, it's double plus out of 7, but if you can't command the fastball or the changeup, I mean, you can't survive in the big league level. 16% barrel rate for what he's doing right now sums it up. So the 5-to-1 walk to strikeout ratio, it's all bad.
I mean, I'm throwing out the first 2 starts. Like,
you have to. You have to.
They're meaningless. Like,
you can learn from it though. Pitch shape wise, you can learn from it,
and you can also learn like he is clearly not confident enough to throw the curveball.
It's to the point now. If you're facing him and he throws you the curveball, it's an automatic take.
Yeah,
so you're not even thinking about it
until he develops a true third pitch, or like you said, improves drastically the command of the fastball.
That's more important. You can live on 2 pitches if you have command, but if you don't have command, you need a whole arsenal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there are going to be problems. That being said, I'm hoping the Royals have nothing to play for. Give him a chance to figure it out.
I don't know, man. I like the Royals going into the season a little bit, so maybe I'm wrong.
Me too.
I think they could easily be the second best team in that division, but the second best team in that division isn't making the playoffs.
And that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, right? So let him figure it out. Like, see what he is, because otherwise he's ending up in the bullpen, which is a fine place for him to end up.
He'll be back this year because they're in a situation with Lynch will be back up soon. They got Singer, who's not going to throw 200 innings. He's been on the rotation all year. He's not going to go the whole way. They got a lot of arms. Jonathan Boland's the guy that's in the minor leagues that's almost ready. Alec Marsh, another guy. You might see all these guys this year. They got a fun system. Nick Prado's back from the dead. If you follow Royals prospects, he's been fantastic as well. But the Royals are fun. They're going to be everybody's super pick for next year, so I'm going to get ahead of them.
Yeah, there's season or 2 away. I mean, and there's no way you can start him versus Boston this week. But yeah. I'm definitely going to be watching the start. We got to see him go more than 2/3 of an inning.
I'm surprised he's getting the start. To be honest, good for the Royals for sticking with him, I guess. But.
I mean, I think they should just let him go. Like let him try it. Like why not? Like at worst you're just improving the team's draft position for next year.
That's a tough sell to active major leaguers. But yeah.
Cole Irvin's been really good this year. Talk about a guy who I don't think anybody really expected to be anything this season. And Brandon Crawford just hit his 15th home run of the season.
What's up with him?
Wow.
Just in time for the Giants to sign him to another contract and let him die out.
Oh, God, please. I mean, they're going to, right? Like, they're clearly going to. And then they will literally bury him at the shortstop position. But absolutely. I have no, like, and I've watched a ton of games, this obviously, of the Giants, and, like, I still don't understand how he's doing this. That being said, back to Cole Irvin. Cole Irvin's been really good this year. Frank, are you buying Cole Irvin?
He's another one of those. I am buying him. He's another one of those pitchers who's just doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, but he has good control. He's got a 3.8% walk rate. He's been consistent this year. We've seen the A's have these kind of ugly pitchers find success through a full year. I mean, look at Mike Fiers back in 2019. When I say ugly, I mean he's not like that flashy guy who racks up strikeouts. So I think he could be effective for a full season, and he could be a decent back end piece throughout the remainder of the year.
He's like the counterpoint to what we talked about with Kolar, right? Irvin's the 4 or 5 pitch mix guy with superb command that doesn't really have. I don't think he has any pitch. If you take command out of it, I don't think he has any pitch really that's average or above average, anyways. I think it's all full. The fastball is certainly not at 90 miles an hour. That's even for a left-hander. That's below average velocity, 91. Goes the sinker, obviously the changeup. The slider and curveball are probably the 2 best pitches he's got. The changeup is probably the best pitch. But anyways, with him, it's all about command, man. If he's got command, it's pretty sticky. It seems like it's going start to start, and I don't see how you can't be buying Cole Irvin right now. He might be a top 40 starter right now, right? Top 40, 50 starter right now.
I don't know if he's a top 40 or 50 starter, considering he isn't. I mean, what's the difference between him and Zach Davies when he's running well? Zach Davies isn't a top 40 or 50 starter.
I'll take Davies right now.
Yeah, you're gonna take Davies, right? He's on, in the National League. He's playing on a team on the Cubs that are actually playing some decent ball. I mean, I think Irvin is fine for what he is, and I think he's kind of. As Paul Sporer would put it, a team streamer. You put him on your team, you're not dropping him, but you're not starting him every game. You're looking for good opportunities at home. And the problem with these guys who are command first and don't get a lot of strikeouts is everything can go right, but everything can go wrong in a hurry too. The margin for error for these guys, especially as the ball starts heating up or as the weather starts heating up and the balls start flying a little bit more, is a lot slimmer for guys with really good stuff. And that scares the hell out of me for a guy like Irvin.
Yeah, so, again, you touched on it. I think you're right. You touched on it that you're not starting him against, the elite offenses. You're not starting him against the Blue Jays. You're not starting him, but being in Oakland is half of the year, half of his starts, you can pretty much start him because in that facility, there's only a handful of teams you're not pitching him against at home. Maybe 2 or 3 teams, to be honest, that he's going to face regularly, right, at home.
You're probably not starting him against the Angels. You're probably not starting him against the Astros.
I would start him against the Angels right now without Trout.
I guess.
Am I Max Stassi hitting third?
Yeah, that's fair. So you're probably. I mean, he's probably a top 60 guy. I don't know if I'm ready to put top 40.
But you're right. Top 40 was a bit overzealous because we were talking about him, but he's a guy that's. You got to think, man. 12-team league. He's got to be 90+% owned in 12-teamers, right?
I doubt it. I mean, I'll check CBS because I know that they deal with a lot
in active leagues. He should be because. Hey,
I'm taking a look.
Holy shit! No, 90% is going to be too high, but in really.
Yeah, in Yahoo leagues, he's 25%. It looks like, but
Yahoo's more 10-team leagues.
Yeah,
he's 56% owned in CBS, which are more 12-team leagues.
Okay.
So that seems about right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. No, you are right looking at the numbers, but yeah, that's. I thought it would have been a little higher just because he's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Again, he kind of fits into. I forget who we were talking about earlier. You're not looking for upside. You're looking for your just steady, boring guy that you throw out there that's going to help you really defend you. I don't even know how much ratio will help you'll get because he doesn't strike guys out, but he's also not walking guys, so you can get away with it.
All right, let's finish out with Caleb Smith because Caleb Smith's been pitching pretty well so far this season. He's currently got a 3.61 ERA, and he's been pitching much better since they put him back into the rotation. The question is, Frank, will he stick in that rotation, and is he worth picking up?
I think he's worth picking up just because we saw I know a lot of respected guys guys and girls in the industry really liked Caleb Smith. I remember Nick Pollock liked him a lot back in 2019, I believe.
Me and Nick argued about him a lot because I shit all over Nick Caleb Smith.
Yeah, So hey, there's some kind of track record there. I looked at his stats right now. He's got a 27% K rate. Maybe he's back to 2019 form. And if we look at that year, uh, he had a 3.35 ERA and 105 WHIP with 123 strikeouts and 102 innings in around the beginning of August, and then the wheels just started to fall off. So, and he had a hip injury that might have affected his production there. So I think he could be a nice pickup to fill out the back end of your rotation because of his strikeout upside. I know he struggled in his last start against the Angels, but if you look at what they're doing against lefties this year, they've been pretty strong. Like they have 110 WRC plus, which is sixth, 182 ISO, which is ninth, and they only have a 22% strikeout rate, which is ranked sixth. So maybe that was just a case of a tough matchup against a team that's really mashing lefties. So given the way, like we said, it's a barren pitching landscape out there on the wire. So why not chase this strikeout upside here with Caleb Smith?
Matt, where are you at on Caleb Smith?
I have a pretty simple name for you. He's the new Robbie Ray, right?
Not quite as many strikeouts, but also maybe not quite as many homers.
Right. How do you feel about riding that wave every day? That's kind of he's the anti-Cole Irvin, right? If you have Cole Irvin on your team, you can probably afford to throw out a Caleb Smith star every now and then. But if you have a team full of Caleb Smiths, you probably don't want another one, right? So I guess that's kind of team construct matters a lot in this kind of deal. Caleb Smith and an Adam Wainwright wouldn't be a terrible back end to your starting pitching roster, but you also don't want, Vince Velasquez and Caleb Smith, right? Or something like that, right? You don't want Velasquez, period. But you know what I mean? But like, you don't want. It's all ratio played, and if you can absorb the beating you could potentially take, then by all means take the strikeout upside. But this one, you have to balance if the upside's worth the risk. I would wager for a lot of rosters with how the health status of your pitchers, it probably is at this point. But I don't know, man. It's a dice roll. That's all I can really say. I don't know how you feel about tight butt cheeks watching games, but he might cause something like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, Caleb Smith's a guy. I mean, my history with me arguing against Nick on whether Caleb Smith was actually good or not.
He was solid with the Marlins.
He was fine, but he was who he was, right? He was Robbie Ray light in a lot of respects.
He wasn't. People kept waiting for him, and rightly so, to make the next step because you could see it coming. I think injuries stopped it from before it could get to that point. But
and he got COVID last year too. I think that hurt him quite a bit too. And I don't think we give enough guys credit. I actually like him in Arizona because I think he gets helped by the humidor. So when you watch him pitch at home, like his stuff has a little bit more bite on it. I think he gets a better grip for the ball. So like I actually picked up Caleb Smith in my main event league or one of my main event leagues this week. So I've kind of come around a little bit on Caleb Smith. You have to be willing to take the blow up because the blow up's going to come every once in a while. And so you have to, like Mike said, you've got to pair him with a guy like Cole Irvin, a guy like Zach Davies that might help protect your ratios a little bit. But
like another wrinkle, this shouldn't stop you from anything with Caleb Smith, but Arizona's got to be looking to trade him at the deadline for something.
Absolutely.
Right? He could absolutely help somebody's team. So, you obviously shouldn't be planning on Caleb Smith for the long haul anyways, but just keep that in the back of your mind. He could get moved, and the situation he gets moved, he's probably going to go back to the bullpen if it's a competitive team. Just throwing that out there.
Well, that depends, though. I mean, there. You look how many pitchers are going down right now. He could fit in someone's rotation. Is he? I mean, I think he's probably better than Sammy Long.
Yeah, but he's free, or Sammy Long's free.
So is Caleb Smith at this point.
Yeah, sure.
And Caleb Smith still has 3 years of control.
There's the whole division thing too. But
yeah, I'm not saying the Giants would. I'm just giving the Giants for instance,
take Robbie Ray or Caleb Smith on.
I mean, couldn't the Braves use him? Shit,
yeah,
with the fact that Carrasco's had another setback, the Mets could use him. Like, there are a lot of teams that are in contention right now that have got serious rotation problems and could use a guy like Caleb Smith to come in. And now, that being said, I want him to stay in Arizona because, like I just said, I do believe that the humidor has helped him a little bit. Though it seems like half of the teams in the league are using humidors right now. So
he's
maybe
pretty much repeating his 2018, though. I mean,
yeah.
Like, even down to like the home run, his home run rate was I don't even look at 2020 because you can't count that.
No, 2020 is not fair. He was hurt, then he got COVID, and I mean 2020 is just a wash. The question is, can he maintain the home run rate he's been maintaining right now? Over the course of a full season.
And that goes back to what we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
His walk and a hit, then he gives up the 3-run homer and it blows up pretty quick.
Mhm.
Hey, it's all about how thick your stomach is for Caleb Smith. But I'd probably run most of my teams right now. I'd probably run them out there if I had them. So,
all right. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Frank, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time.
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it, man.
Nice to meet you.
Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug all your work.
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter at FAmmiranteTFJ. I'm always up for debate there, whether it's baseball, whether it's football, whether it's really any sport, but focusing on those two. You can find my written work at Rotoballer, where I write fantasy baseball and fantasy football, as well as the game day, where I also dabble in a bit of sports betting. So you can find me there, and I look forward to interact with you on Twitter.
And then, Matt, remind everybody where you could be reached and what are you working on?
MB Top FWFB, Prospects Live. We're kicking off I don't know if you guys remember this from last year, but we did our live mock draft. That's going to be in about 2 weeks from now. So we're kind of getting all the prep ready for that, getting representatives from 29 teams because there's one team that doesn't have a pick in the first 63 picks, so we're not using one. But sorry, Houston Astros fans, we do not have a draft pick in the first 63 picks. But the prospect side's ramping up. We're doing well prospect stuff-wise. Besides Fangraphs and all that stuff, I hope that's a website people check out for their prospect news. But thanks, Frank. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, I had a
following
great
you
time.
for a while on Twitter, so good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, both of you, too. I was honored to be on the show.
You can follow me on Twitter at Justin Mason, FWFB. You can read most of my written work is over on Fangraphs, where I'm writing pretty close to daily. I also write over at friendsoffantasybenefits.com and tgfbi.com. And you can hear me on this podcast, TGFBI podcast, and the Sleeper on the Bus podcast. That will do it for us. For Frank, Matt, and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.